Ruby Franke appeared in court on Monday, and now new information has been brought to light in this case that is even more disturbing than what was originally reported. Back in August, Ruby and her Connections business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt, were arrested. And as the months have gone by, more information has been revealed about what these two were doing to Ruby's children. We've heard from Ruby's siblings these last couple of months, as well as Kevin Franke through his attorney and Ruby's daughter Sherry here and there, about not having any true idea, the fullest extent of what Ruby and Jodi were doing, and it seems they are all finding out along with the rest of the world what was going on. This entire family has been through so much, and it's been extremely hard to hear about the things that have happened, and even with this new information, there is a lot of healing this family needs because Ruby and Jodi are truly sick for this. But it seems like as of Monday, Ruby has taken a plea deal in this case. I know a lot of people have been expressing their opinions on her being able to take a plea deal to potentially lessen her time, but that seems to be what's happened. She appeared in court and pled guilty to 4 counts of child abuse and not guilty for 2 other counts. The judge scheduled sentencing for February 20th, and it seems she could be facing anywhere from 1 to 15 years for each count she's found guilty. Now, present in the courtroom for this was Ruby's sister Julie, as well as her brother Beau and her parents, which is quite surprising as they haven't been in the States that much this year, and a lot of people had actually been criticizing Ruby's parents these last couple of months because they had been away on a mission trip, and people had said that they should be there for their kids as their entire family has opened up about struggling with all of this news coming out, and last we heard, their parents were still away on their mission trip. Ruby's sister Ellie posted a video last month on her YouTube channel where she opened up about how she's been feeling and mentioned that she got her and her sisters a gift as well as their mom, and that their mom would get it when she comes back, signaling to everyone that she was still away.
And I had a ring made for me, Bonnie, Julie, and my mom. And when my mom gets back from her mission, she will be able to have it, and we will have matching rings.
And like I said, this has been upsetting to people, feeling like the parents should be there with the family during this time, but it looks like they have made it back from their mission since they were in the courtroom this day to see Ruby plead guilty, and that this was probably who Ruby was smiling at when she walked into the courtroom.
Ms. Franke is now here.
Which is so interesting because, as we've heard in the last couple of months, Ruby had cut off her entire family after a while of being in connections with Jodi. And at one point, she had called her mother and accused her of a number of things that her sisters say were not true.
Crap hit the fan and she left the family, and she didn't even call me to say, hey, you know, Julie, you're doing this and this, and I don't like it, you're living your life in distortion, so I'm gonna have to take some time away from you. No, literally nothing. She did call my mom and yelled at my mom on the phone for 45 minutes and accused her of things that were not true. It was almost as if Ruby had been making up memories from her childhood. She was trying to grab at anything she could, and she would exaggerate on everything. So she started all of her lies back then, lying to everyone in her life, getting rid of all of her friends and family, and I literally had no contact with her.
So to see her come into the courtroom and look over towards them and smile, I just kind of wonder what kind of realizations she's maybe had as she's been locked up. Ruby's sister Bonnie had even talked about the fact that Ruby was making things up about their family and talked about how this is a pattern with Jodi, that she gets into families' lives and manipulates people to believe things that weren't even true for some sick reason.
As things have unfolded now, we can see that this is something that Jodi has done, is she gets in people's lives and she plants these ideas or accusations against people when that is just not true. And so we really came to the conclusion that the things she's saying are untrue. We don't know why she's saying this. We don't know what her end goal is. In the beginning, I just thought, well, she's making things up so that she has something to discuss in therapy, is honestly what I thought. The things that she was accusing all of us of were just abhorrent, but also comical at how untrue they were.
It's all just very interesting to hear that Ruby thought so negatively about her family, and then here she is smiling to them in the courtroom. But during her guilty plea, she did admit to being regretful and feeling sorrow for her family.
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
Now, the new details of this case, like I mentioned, were revealed and are far worse than previously described. The actions of Ruby and Jody are so disturbing. They both need to be locked up for as long as possible, because to be able to do these things to innocent children is sickening. And the excuses they were giving for their behavior were among some of the craziest things I've heard. It's now being revealed that they were saying Ruby's children were evil and possessed and they needed to repent. Like, how do you get to the point where you are hearing something like that and believing it and willing to hurt a child over something like that? Like, it's truly sick. When it comes to Jody, this has been a pattern of behavior for her to have done this kind of thing to multiple families. I truly wonder what is truly wrong with her to feel good about the fact that she's doing all of this to people, ruining lives, destroying families. Like, for her to sit there in videos with Ruby, acting all high and mighty, better than everyone else, the woman with all the answers that people should pay to get her advice. And this is how she really was, someone who seemed to just enjoy ruining people's lives, punishing people. It's scary. And for Ruby to buy into all of her games and tricks, it's just truly so sick that she did go along with this, all to the degree that she did, that she couldn't look around and think, wow, this is actually really bad and doesn't make any sense. I should not be doing this to my kids. Like, we all knew Ruby was strict before even being in Connections. We saw how she was on the vlogs, but what these two were doing doesn't even compare in the slightest to what people were originally angry at Ruby for. All of this truly is just on another level, and I truly hope these kids can get the help that they need to try and work through what has happened. Kevin is currently still fighting for custody of the 4 children that he shares with Ruby that are under the age of 18. And last we talked, he had just filed for divorce from Ruby. His lawyer did do an interview with Law and Crime recently where he shared more about what's going on and insight to how Kevin has been feeling, as well as Kevin's understanding of Jody and Connections in the program that he was in and what was kind of going on in his time when he was separated with Ruby.
Because Jody had convinced him that was part of the therapy program, that he needed not to speak to Ruby, he needed not to speak to the kids. She even had him abandon his relationships with his siblings and other family. He was essentially living like a pauper, away from his family, barely kept enough money for himself to get by, pretty much just going to work, coming home, engaging in therapy sessions. That was his social life. That was his lifeline. And she had him completely wrapped up in this program.
Kevin's lawyer also tried to say that Sherry and Chad are in constant contact with their dad, despite what the relationship looked like in previous months, with Sherry and Kevin not speaking.
Oh, they're getting along great with their dad. They've spent a lot of time together. They were all together actually over the Thanksgiving holiday, and spent some time together as a family. And Sherry and Chad are in constant contact with Kevin.
That's not
Probably
that's good to,
daily.
because that's good to hear, because we did see reporting that there was tension between Sherry and Kevin with respect to her coming to the house. He was curious if or not a police report could have been filed against her, criminal charges been filed against her for coming into the home. So how did they work through their differences?
Just by discussing with adults to one another, father to daughter, and they worked through all that. It was a lot of it was circumstantial. There were tensions and feelings were running pretty hot.
Kevin's lawyer did address Kevin calling the cops on Sherry, trying to accuse her of robbery, and claims that they were able to work past that whole issue.
Tensions were just running pretty high. There was some finger pointing going on, but they've resolved all that. Kevin was particularly upset that the front door of his home had been kicked in and things had been gone through, and the house was a mess. And he'd even been told that third parties who weren't even family members had been able to get into the house and take things or rifle through things or just walk through. And so when he found out some of his personal electronic materials had been taken,
right,
He was upset with Sherry, but they've resolved all that. They're best friends now.
So that's what Kevin's lawyer had to say about the status of this family, and that's what's happened this week in regards to Ruby. If anything further occurs in this case, I will let you guys know. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.